Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of Season 4 to Prime Video's adult animated superhero series, Invincible, based on the comic book series of the same name, created by Robert Kirkman, who also wrote the comics as well. This show has been a favorite of mine all the way back from when it debuted. Season 1, I think that was 2021 that it debuted. I could be off on that, or maybe 2022. But regardless, I've loved this show. Not because I'm an animation fan, which I am, not because I read the comic books, because I didn't, and not because it's a superhero show, which I absolutely love. I love this show because it blended all of those factors along with real drama, real emotion. I mean, it's a unique show. And on top of that, you have superheroes flying around and doing superhero things. And it's so well put together. It's one of these shows that when you watch it, you have to sit back and like, what am I watching? Is this a real thing? You know, it's so odd to see this on television, and to say it's adult animation, it's adult because of the subject matter and the violence and the sexual nature of some of the episodes and things of that nature. It's some adult themes that go out throughout this show. But it's not adult because of the gratuitous nudity and violence and all this here, even though it has its fair share of both. But it's because of the subject matter. It's real subject matter. It's dealing with real emotions in this fantastical world. And so season 4 comes along, and this season, we start off, we're focused on the aftermath of the Invincible War that took place in season 3. Mark, he fights Conquest, a powerful Viltrumite, and he would be a final boss in any saga of comic books. That's the final boss. That's how bad Conquest is. But we learned in this season, Conquest was nothing compared to the real threat that lurks in Invincible's distant future, I should say. And so you have Nolan returning to Earth for the first time since he killed thousands, if not millions, but thousands of people in that fight with Mark, and just laid waste. Now he's seeking redemption. You have Oliver. He is coming into his own as a superhero as well. You have the correlation of planets who are preparing for war with the Viltrumites. So this season was jam-packed of pure excitement. This review, I'm just going to go over some little notes. I'm not going to go through every single episode. I'm just going to go through a couple of main plot points that went throughout the season and talk on them. They're, the ones that really hit me, whether they were good or bad. It is not too many bads. Well, spoiler alert, there aren't any bads, to be honest with you. This was an amazing season of Invincible. This was an amazing season of television, period. I don't care. Any show. This was fantastic. Well, no, I do have one negative, and we'll get to that. But let's go through the plot points that stuck out with me this season. If you want to hear me break down the first 3 episodes, I have that up on my feed on my channel. You can check that review out. But since then, we find out that Eve is pregnant. Her and Mark are going to have a baby, but Eve doesn't want to tell Mark. She's scared to tell Mark, and we later find out that she had an abortion when Mark went off with Nolan and fought in that war when he was gone a good bit. They were gone a while, and it tore her up to tell him. But the reaction was so beautiful. The response from Mark was great. I mean, the perfect response. It wasn't a yay or nay or how could you do that or oh I'm glad you did that. No, it was I'm sorry. I'm sorry I put you in that position. I'm sorry I left you here alone. It tore me up. It tore me up for that moment because it was so sincere. It wasn't a matter of, well, you could have had faith. He didn't jump on her. You should have had faith that I was going to come back and, you weren't alone and all this here and this, that, and the third. No, he respected Eve enough to accept it. And I thought that was probably the strongest thing he's done on this show. That's counting his superhero abilities. That's fighting conquest, blowing up a planet, and everything else. That was the strongest thing I ever saw Mark do. Beautiful moment. I think that's how it played out in the comics. I could be wrong. Probably a little differently, but she did have the abortion in the comics, but I think it played out a little differently, the reveal and whatnot. Nolan and Debbie. Now this was an epic moment, two epic moments to be honest with you, when they meet up this season. The first time Debbie lays eyes on Nolan since that brutal beatdown of Mark and destroying uh destroying half the planet when they fought. But this was their first interaction, and Debbie just unleashed on them. Now this I do know for a fact that played out differently than the comics. In the comics, she was more accepting of Nolan. Actually, in the comics, she really blamed Mark for Nolan leaving. So Debbie's character is vastly different from the comics than what we see on the Prime Video show. And I like this version better. I don't need a bad Debbie. I like the Debbie that we have. But her unleashing on Nolan and really just I don't know, verbally beating him down worse than any fight Nolan has ever been in. And she's really the only one that can do that. Because he does love her. He loves her to death. He really do love her. And he told her that even though during that fight in season 1 he had with Mark, he told Mark that I just used your mother. She's nothing to me and blah, blah, blah. She was just a breeding vessel and all this other stuff. But he didn't mean it, he probably meant it at the time, but we all think back on things we said when we were younger and wish we could take it back. We don't feel that way now. We probably felt that way then, but when you know better, you do better. And Nolan, he's changed. He's a changed man. And he's trying to express that to her. And I felt Nolan in this. I felt Nolan in this scene in particular. Because even though this is animation, J.K. Simmons does a great job emoting through his voice acting here, how sincere he was talking to Debbie, but Debbie didn't want to hear it. And it's understandable on both ends. That's why I sympathize with him, because, we all have that, especially men. We all feel that we can tell a woman, look, I'm sorry. And that be the end of it. But any man who's in a relationship with a woman can tell you that's not the end of it. That's not going to do it. Actions speak louder than words. And that's basically what Debbie is telling Nolan in this, just paraphrasing it. She doesn't want to hear that. And I felt that was a powerful moment in this season and for Debbie. And Sandra Oh, man, beautiful, beautiful. And then the second meeting in the final episode of this season, that was a good scene between those two. And J.K. Simmons as Nolan being a little more forceful, but not forceful. Not Omni-Man. He was Nolan. And trying to express to Debbie how he truly feels and what his intentions are. And it broke through. It was a little crack, but it was enough. It was enough to the point where when they left Oliver, and we're going to get to that point in a sec, when he left Oliver on a different planet so he can be treated from having his arm ripped off, she chose to go off with him to be by Oliver's side. So that will be exciting to see going into next season, because in the comics, her and Nolan, on the way to that planet, they hook back up. They get back together. So we'll see if it plays out like it played out in the comics coming in season 5. Speaking of Oliver was a character in season 3 that I wasn't too excited about, to be honest with you. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate his character, but I wasn't like, all right, Oliver's in the show. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't an Oliver guy, but I grew to like him this season. When we started off, I didn't too much care for him. I still had that hangover from season 3. I found him annoying, but I got the character. I just found him annoying, and he started off a little annoying in this season, but as the season progressed, the character grew on me, and I loved it, especially when they being Nolan, Oliver, and Mark were traveling to link up with the coalition of planets to fight this war. And Nolan sees Oliver for the first time. You got to keep in mind, he hasn't met Oliver. Well, he saw him when he was a baby, but not, after that, he hadn't seen him growing up and everything. And Oliver idolized Omni-Man. He idolized Nolan. That's his dad. He loved his dad. Even though he knew what his dad did, he still loved him. And, you know, that's family. That's understandable. And as a child, it's understandable. And so when he did meet up with him, of course, Nolan was upset because he came along, and that kind of spoiled the little relationship there, you know, if there was going to be one. And Nolan, once again, had to redeem himself. And we saw that happen over a couple of episodes this season, where he tried to break through to Oliver. That was the one person that loved him, that was willing to forgive him for all the shenanigans that he did, all of his past crimes that he committed. He, in spite of all that, he still loved him, worshiped him, wanted to be his son. And when he spoiled that, it's even worse because it's fresh, and now you got to kind of course correct here. And it still didn't quite get there, but by the time we got to episode 7, it started to heal a little bit more, and it was good to see that relationship grow. And that's one thing about this show, especially this season, it stuck out the most to me, was the fact that they took time. They took time with the relationships. They took time with the story. They didn't just blaze through storylines throughout. You know, it wasn't an episode villain of the week type deal. This was a through line, and if it took 2 or 3 episodes to get a resolution, they made sure it took 2 or 3 episodes, and it was earned when we finally got to the resolution, whether it was good or bad. And that's what made this season so special to me. The one thing about this season, before I get to the meat and potatoes and my favorite part of this season, which I would assume is everybody's favorite part, but before I get to that, let's get the one negative out of the way. and that was episode 4 of this season, entitled And that was the episode when Mark goes to hell. And I'm not saying he died and went to hell. I mean, he was summoned to hell by Dark Blood to help him and Satan, who Satan isn't the Satan that we all learned about in Sunday school and that. But this is a different kind of hell, because in this comic book universe, there's a hell, but there's no heaven, which is backwards to me. It don't make sense, but whatever. And I'm gonna go with it. And I just didn't like the episode. With all that being said, I just didn't like that. It it didn't fit this season in the grand scheme of it all. It just felt so out of place. Was it a bad episode? No, it wasn't bad, but it just felt out of place, and it kind of broke the flow. Now it immediately picked back up in episode 5, but it was like a dead stop there, because the episode mainly focused on Dark Blood. Mark he wasn't in it long. Our main characters were not featured in this episode. It was more of Dark Blood, which, all right, that's fine, but who cares about this story right now? We got a more interesting story going on in the main storyline, and it just kind of broke the flow of the season. Now, like I said, it wasn't a bad episode, and it did pick right back up in season 5, because episode 5, it got immediately back on track. It was just like a little rest stop. But that was my only flaw. The only flaw of this season. And so let's get to the biggie of it all. Let's get to the part of this season that was absolutely amazing. We learned about the Viltrumites. We learned about their history throughout the season, how they operate, how their culture is, and they're Nazis. They're super being Nazis, and that's scary, and pretty much, no pun intended, invincible, man. You can't kill these things. These are if they were to invade Earth, which we learn later, if they were to take over Earth, they didn't need that many people. They only needed what's left, 37, I think. Thragg said is only 37 Viltrumites left, and they can still take this planet at ease. They're that powerful. Really don't need that many. That's overkill. Thragg by himself can do it. But we'll talk about him later. But we learn about their history and whatnot. The coalition of planets, they decide, okay, we got to bring a fight to them. We got to stop them before they annihilate us. It all picks up in episode 7 when the war begins, and Thragg, he attempts to convince Nolan to join back with the Viltrumites again. See, Thragg he's all about his people, preserving the future of his people. That's his thing. That's all he's concerned with. He really don't care about taking over the universe and all this other foolishness. That's not his goal. His goal is to bring back his people, because they were mighty at one point until they were betrayed, and this virus that was created, wiped out the majority of their people. And so he took power after this happened, and his singular goal, was to build his people back up. And that's why Nolan went off. They sent others off to procreate. This what they called it in Superman, the harem, to go and just breed with other beings to try to build the Viltrumite people back up. And so that's all he cares about. And Nolan, who is on his redemption tour, he declines the offer. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. You're wrong. At what cost are you willing to pay, as far as the sake of the universe, to build back up your people? You're willing to genocide everybody else just to preserve your people. It's the sympathetic villain thing. It's the you understand where Thragg is coming from. You know, you don't want to see your people wiped out, but at this cost, it's a weird thing. But I love Thragg. Thragg is one of the greatest villains I have ever laid eyes on. I grew up, I'm thinking Thanos, Joker. I'm thinking Dark Side, the mainstream comics. Yeah, that's what I was grew up on reading. These type of villains who are just insane. You can go outside of comic books. You got Darth Vader, the Emperor, and all that other good stuff. Yeah, those are just cold-blooded villains. But the best type of villain in any medium, comic book, movies, television, whatever it may be, the best kind of villain is the villain who thinks he's the hero in his story. And that's what Thragg is. And he is voiced perfectly by Lee Pace. If you don't know who Lee Pace is, I'm pretty sure you've heard him and you've seen him too. If you watch Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, volume 1, he is Ronan the Destroyer, or Ronan the Accuser. I'm sorry. Ronan the Accuser. That's who Lee Pace is. His voice is amazing. And him voicing Thragg, oh my God, it just adds an extra level of sophistication, intimidation, sympathy, all wrapped up in. He has the perfect voice for this character, and this character just is a beast. He is unbeatable. He is unbeatable. It's one thing for Invincible. Invincible is unbeatable. I'm talking about Mark here. He's unbeatable, but you can, incapacitate him. You can tear him up and beat him up and all this other stuff. You can't do nothing with Thragg. Absolute. You can't hit him. You can't blow him up. You can't slice his head. It's nothing you can do. That's why he's so soft-spoken. He doesn't have to get loud. For what? It's no reason. That dude is cold, calculated, just, my God, what a villain. They go to war. They start to fight. Now you have Mark, Nolan, and Oliver trying to go at Thragg. It's sometimes individually, sometimes together, and it doesn't do anything. Oliver, as I mentioned before, he gets his arm severed by Thragg, just for trying to hit him. He ain't even hit him, just for trying to hit him. Thaddeus, who is a Viltrumite but works with the coalition of planets, he gets his head ripped off. Nolan, he gets, oh my God, poor Nolan. Nolan, I thought he was gonna die. I really thought he was gonna die. I think, did Thragg punch through his stomach or something? And poor Mark was about to get his eyes just caved in until Thragg realized, like, man, we're almost depleted as a people. Why would I kill a Viltrumite? Half Viltrumite, but a Viltrumite nonetheless. So he doesn't do it, but he could have easily popped his head open. So he leaves him be. Bruh, Thragg is a beast. In the scene when they blew up Viltrum, and Thragg tears apart a piece of that planet and is staring a hole through Mark, Thaddeus, and Nolan, and he's crying. Oh my God, my heart dropped into my stomach, because wait, y'all done pissed this man off. He was doing what he was doing, just like he was doing push-ups, like it's a normal day, like he was making a sandwich in the kitchen. It was la-di-da, whistling while you work. Now you pissed him off. Bruh, when he shot off and grabbed Thaddeus, and he did it so quick, Mark and Nolan didn't even realize it. He had already decapitated Thaddeus at that point. and then squashed his head with it between his bare hands. Bruh, bruh. It was brutal. That was an awesome scene, awesome episode. That whole war, that battle. And by the end of it, I was like, man, we still got an episode left, because that felt season finale-ish. That felt like that was the end of this season. But no, we had another episode left. But before I get to that, I had skipped over one note accidentally, and I apologize. I wanted to talk about Conquest. I wanted to talk about how Conquest was about to kill Oliver. And Mark went and saved him and started choking Conquest out. Now, remember, they fought in the last season, and it almost killed Mark. He still has PTSD to that. And he told Conquest, like, you're never going to breathe again. I mean, he latched on like a baby that got food. You know when a baby latch on to a piece of food that you didn't want them to have, and you're trying to pry it out of their hands? It's like the death grip. You're not getting it out. And Mark has this death grip around his neck, and just flying him through mountains and through the ground. And now they're on the ground, and he's punching Mark, trying to get him to release his neck. And he's suffocating. So at this point, Conquest starts tearing into Mark's stomach, and pulling out his intestines. But Mark is so much of a beast, he still held that grip. And Conquest is slowly losing it, and he's still yanking out intestines. And I'm like, bro, this has got to be the greatest thing I ever saw in my life. I have never seen anything like this in my life. I think this was episode 5, if I'm not mistaken. And so he is pulling all of this out. And finally, he succumbs. He chokes him out, kills him. He suffocates him. And Mark just collapses on the side. Intestines just spread all over the place. And that's how the episode ends. And you're like, they just killed Mark in episode 5? Who does that? But he's a Viltrumite. So Nolan was able to bandage him up and allow his body to heal, because that's the ability that they do have. That was all episode 6, basically. And this is the episode where we get this relationship building with Nolan and Oliver. But I wanted to mention that because that was an awesome moment in this season. But we get to the final episode of this season, episode 8. And now Mark, Nolan, and Zoe, they all rush back to Earth because they all figured out that Thragg and his people, they're going to come and invade Earth. And so they rushing back to Earth. They finally get to Earth, and they're not there. Thragg hasn't made it there yet. So Mark, he goes to see his family, and he's having flashbacks. He's having, not flashbacks, but like flash forwards of visions of Thragg and the Viltrumites destroying Earth, laying waste to Earth. And he just can't shake it. He sees Thragg kill Debbie, kill Eve, kill his best friend, he's having this moment, these moments, really. And this was cool because you have to think, bro, it's like a soldier returning from war. You've been through all this crap over there, wherever you was fighting this war, seen things that no human being should see with their eyes. And you come home to regular old home, suburban, wherever, USA, and try to live a normal life. That's not gonna play out like you think. And that's why some of these veterans, they struggle when they come home, man. You don't know what they see, and it's and what they're dealing with, and that's basically what Mark is going through now, having experienced what he experienced, uh, fighting this war with the Viltrumites. So I like that element they added to it, and how it wasn't just a one thing, a one moment type thing, like, oh, he's going through this. No, he goes through it the entire episode. And so this is when we get the reveal of Adam Eve telling Mark that she was pregnant and she had an abortion. And it was a nice swerve by the show that when he came back, you noticed she put on some weight. And so immediately you're assuming that, okay, she's pretty far along by now, or she didn't have the baby by now, she put on a little weight. But no, it's really more of her. She's emotional, she's emotionally eating, and she's putting on weight, and because she went through this abortion, she's felt alone. She's been alone all this time, and she had to come up with this decision on her own, and it took a toll on her, and because it was stripping away her powers with this pregnancy. But now she has her powers back, and she still doesn't use them, and it I guess for guilt reasons and stuff like it. It's just very, very cool the way they did it. I tip my hat to all of the writers and the showrunners of Invincible for this. This was powerful, very, very powerful. And so we end off this season with not one but two cliffhangers. One being Thragg did arrive on Earth. Mark immediately tries to attack them, and Thragg was like, "Stop! No, I want to talk." I could have been took over. We've been here. I could have been destroyed this planet, but I wanted to talk to you. I want to give you a proposition. We're gonna come here. We're gonna live amongst your people, and we're going to breed with your people and help build up the Viltrumites again. Or your other option is that we lay waste to it. And I love this line, and it sticks with me because I thought it was the coldest line ever, and the way Lee Pace delivered it was even colder. You don't have a choice in this matter, but sadly you're in a position you're gonna have to make one. I was like, oh man, that is gangster. That is a gangster choice. And really, when you sit back and think, what would you do? Look at the options. Look at your options here. Let your planet be a breeding ground for these people, for these alien beings that can take over Earth, or just say, forget it and let them destroy everybody. Let them kill everybody, billions of people. What's your choice? what are you choosing? Because you can't fight them. You just proved that. You just was shown that live and in living color that you can't beat these people. And so it's a hard choice to make, but Mark makes the choice to allow them to come to Earth and breed. And that's how it left off. Then we get a cliffhanger or a mid-credit scene where Alan, who is now the leader of the Coalition of Planets after Thaddeus unceremoniously was murdered, he's the leader, and Thaddeus left him a post-mortem message and instructed him to use the Surge virus or the Scourge virus, whatever it's called, that can wipe out the Viltrumites. But the caveat to it, it can also wipe out human beings. And so now Alan is tasked with the decision himself. Do I use this and just wipe out everybody on planet Earth, just to save the universe? And that ended season 4. I'm telling you, man, best season of Invincible, and probably one of the best shows that I've watched season wise in 3 to 4 years. Loved everything. Even the episode I didn't like, I can find things to like in that episode. And so I have no complaints about Invincible season 4. That's why I'm giving it a letter grade of an A. Yeah, Invincible season 4 is must watch TV, absolute cinema, as they say. I highly recommend it. If you haven't watched season 4, if you haven't watched any episodes of Invincible, please, ma'am, please, sir, go check out Invincible on Prime Video, all 4 seasons. I would like to know, what did you think of Invincible season 4? Did you like it? And what do you think will take place in season 5 with these Viltrumites now on planet Earth living among us? Let me know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of season 4 to Invincible, currently on Prime Video. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.